Swank, and I'm just going to share a little bit about my walk with Jesus and why I chose to follow him. So let's get started. I chose to follow Jesus just 4 years ago. I was raised in the church, tried my hardest to follow the 10 Commandments and to pray on a regular basis. I eventually realized, though, these were all just actions and part of a routine. While I never turned away from Jesus, I definitely wasn't following his lead. But then when I was in college, I started volunteering for a high school ministry program, which led me to leading the high school girls' small group. Right away, though, I was wrestling with this conflict inside, saying what I knew was the right answer, but then actually believing what I was also telling these girls. But then one night in October of 2010, I was sitting in my bedroom and I started crying and screaming at God. I told him that if he was real and he was the definition of love, he better show up and show me what it looks like to be loved and to give love. At that exact moment, this peace came over me, and honestly I can say I've never been the same, or that Jesus had never been more real to me. From that moment on, in that moment, God showed me love, and I was able to see that he is what I needed. I wanted what he was offering, which meant surrendering everything I had been. All the boys, money, school, and even music and TV, along with everything else, was now his. I chose to follow Jesus because after hearing about him, praying to him, and then actually being in a vulnerable state of being honest with him, he showed me love. The love that changed my life completely. I chose to follow Jesus because he honestly filled the void that had been there that would never go away. I chose to follow Jesus because in my most honest moment of being angry with him, he still showed me grace and love. Since that day, I've chosen to show that love to others because Jesus has shown me that through his love, there's no better way to glorify his name. In John 13, Jesus is with the disciples. He has just washed their feet and is predicting the betrayal that will be the beginning of his death. He has discussed how since he washed their feet, they are now to go out and wash others, that he had shown them the example to live by. And then he said, "Now I'm going to give you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." So how do I glorify God in my own life? My love language is quality time, so hanging out with people and just listening to their life is automatic to me. But what is so cool about this is that through long talks, especially talks that involve swapping stories, something related to God has to come up on my part. Whether I'm just mentioning going to church or a Bible study, or even boldly saying I had a total God moment the other day. But ultimately, the way in which people open up to me is after just me listening to them. You don't have to talk about Jesus to act like him. He said he was our example, that he loved everyone, he did not pick and choose who he hung out with, he gave everyone a chance, no matter their reputation or their actions. You never know where you'll end up, but don't underestimate where God has put you. I currently work for 3 different schools, 2 being state colleges. As an instructor, I am not allowed to talk in God's favor, but that does not mean I can talk against his favor or that I stop showing love to my students and my peers. Serving and being selfless, being patient and understanding, those to me are the same as washing others' feet. Because living for Jesus does not mean you do anything for anything in return, right? You already got the best of the best. You have a relationship with Jesus. And the closer and deeper your relationship with Jesus gets, the more these actions become second nature. For example, while I am an instructor who cannot talk about Jesus, I'm also a graduate student who can. So if God comes up in conversation in the classroom, I raise my hand and I share my viewpoint. I'm not pushy, I'm not judgmental, I'm not closed-minded, and I'm not opinionated. I am just sharing my own viewpoint in the hopes of just discussing about Jesus. The best comment that I get from people that I talk to, even if I don't talk to them about Jesus, is that they say, "You're just different." And I want to say, I'm different because I have Jesus. I have the difference because I have the joy and the peace in my life because I know that I serve a Lord that is never failing. And I'm able to selflessly serve because He's already done that for me and showed me how to glorify His name. Do not underestimate what you look like to others who might not even know Jesus when you start living out His example. Do not underestimate what you can mean to people when you start serving them and being there for them. Jesus is not kidding when He says that people will know you are one of His by the way you love others. Do not try to live this love out on your own. Do not forget where this love comes from. Know that you have an endless supply of it, though, when you have a personal relationship with Jesus. I think putting forth this extra effort and time is worth it because ultimately we are here to glorify Jesus. When you start seeing your one job on earth is to glorify Him, everything else becomes less important. It becomes less of the time I get to spend doing what I want to do, and more about spending the time the way Jesus wants me to. It's more about being there for others, and less about seeing what others can do for me. It's hard. Living for Jesus is going to be the hardest decision you ever make, and you're going to mess it up. I mess it up plenty. But Jesus never fails, and once you make the decision to follow the one who never fails, and you are continuously seeking Him out, everything changes for the better. Once you get a glimpse of how this world was intended to be, you don't want to let it go. It takes a lot of obedience and conscious decisions to spend your time glorifying Jesus, rather than fulfilling your own wants. But there is freedom and peace in obeying Jesus. There's freedom in knowing you have His love, which is the only love you'll ever need. It's worth it because at the end of my life, I'll be able to see ways that Jesus' love was used through me, and see the people who I get to hang out with in Jesus because they saw the love I had, and they latched onto it too. By glorifying Jesus right now, we do not just get to be disciples for people's lives to change here on earth, but for eternity. It's worth it because we get to see the love of Jesus in us because He loved us first. He's loved us from the beginning, and He knew what we would do and even what we wouldn't do. And it's not just any kind of love. It's a love that's greater than we could ever imagine. How can we not show this love with others?